Okay, the third part of 5-6 is dealing with perpendicular lines. Yesterday we dealt with parallel lines. Parallel lines mean we have the same slope. Perpendicular lines also have a unique relationship. Some of the properties we need to remind ourselves with perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines meet at a 90-degree angle. So lines are perpendicular if they meet at a 90-degree angle, okay? Perpendicular lines also intersect. So let's say that I had two lines on a coordinate plane, and I had one line going like this, and then I had another line intersecting it, and it actually would intersect at a right angle. So perpendicular lines will always intersect because they're not parallel. They're not increasing at the same rate. Here is the doozy. Their slopes are negative the reciprocal of each other. And that's what's hard to visualize. That's what most students really struggle with. So the slope of parallel lines are negative the reciprocal of each other. For example, let's say I had y equals 1/2 x plus 1. That's a line. The slope of this line is 1/2. Well, the slope of a line perpendicular to it would be negative the reciprocal of that line. So notice the relationship between 1/2 and -2. Because if you took the reciprocal of 1/2, 1/2 the reciprocal is 2, 2 over 1, which is 2, and then you just make it a negative reciprocal. Okay? Another example that I'll do with you of two perpendicular lines would be y is equal to 3/4, let's say -3/4 x plus 3. I don't care about the y-intercept here. Notice I'm only comparing slopes. And if I had y is equal to positive 4/3 x plus 1. If I look at their slope, this first slope is -3/4, and then the second slope is the reciprocal. I flipped it and made it the opposite sign. Okay? All right, just some vocabulary words to remember. I need you to know that reciprocal means that we flip the numerator and denominator. And negative, if I say it's negative, you change the sign. So if it's negative the reciprocal, that means make it the opposite sign and flip it. So we're going to do some examples. Let's pretend I had a slope of 1/4. What would the perpendicular slope be?
-4 over 1.
Yep, the perpendicular slope would be -4 over 1. What if I had a slope of 5?
1 over 5.
-1 over 5. The perpendicular slope would be -1 over 5. Okay, what if I had the slope of 4?
-1 over 4.
Yes. The perpendicular slope would be -1 over 4. And we're just practicing our skills here. What if I had the slope of 2/3?
-3 over 2.
Okay, think it in your head for 2 seconds first, because not all of us are on the same page. Our perpendicular slope would be negative the reciprocal. Yep, -3/2. Think it in your head. Okay. What would my perpendicular slope be?
1/3.
1/3. Positive 1/3, right? Because I flip it and I make it the opposite sign. -3/4, don't blurt it. Don't blurt it. Zachary.
4 over 3.
Positive 4 over 3. So right now, you're doing really good at identifying the perpendicular slope. Keep this up, okay? Emily, what would our perpendicular slope be?
-4/6.
-4/5, yes. Okay. 4/7. John, what would that be? -7/4. And lastly, -1/2. I don't know why that would turn to what, Logan?
It would be 2/1 or 2.
2/1 or 2 positive, right? Very good. Okay? Okay, looking at this group of lines, these are all lines because they're all representing a line. I want you to look through and try to identify which lines are parallel and which lines are perpendicular. Oh no. Okay, we want to look at this list of numbers and identify what's parallel and perpendicular. So we are comparing all their slopes. So we're trying to find slopes that are the same for parallel, and we're trying to find slopes that are negative, the reciprocal, for perpendicular. So who has a pair of parallel slopes? Scott.
First one.
Okay, so y equals 4x plus 3 or minus 3, and which else?
Second from the bottom.
Y equals 4x minus 4. Yes, they are a pair of parallel lines because they have the same slope. Okay, what's another one? Jay?
Y equals 7x minus 2.
Y equals negative 7x minus 2. And what other one?
Third one from the bottom.
Y equals negative 7x minus 4. Okay? Someone give me a recip one. Give me a reciprocal one. Okay, Eli.
The bottom one.
So y equals negative 3 halves x plus 3. And what else?
And the third one.
Y equals 2/3 x minus 4. Okay, good. Brittany.
The second one?
Y equals, wait, where do I put it?
Perpendicular.
Okay, so y equals 2x plus 1. And what other one? Y equals negative 1/2 x, right? Okay, Emily?
The first one?
Oh, yeah. And going in the perpendicular. Okay. So y equals 4x minus 3. And then we get y equals a negative 1/4 x plus 7. So that is a very important skill that we need to be familiar with. The next skill you have to know is we have to identify what the slope would be of a perpendicular line given a line that is perpendicular to. All right, when we identify slopes of perpendicular lines, the line that it usually gives us is not the line that it's on. It's the line it has that relationship with first. The first thing we need to do is get it into y equals mx plus b form. So here it already is. It looks like my normal slope is 3. So what would the slope be of my perpendicular line?
-1/3.
Just negative 1/3. Like down 1/3, down 1/3. Okay? Now this next one, I can't identify what the perpendicular slope is yet because y isn't alone. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through and make y alone. And I get y is equal to 4/2 is 2x minus 3 halves. That 3 halves is ugly, but I don't care about it at all. Okay? So My slope of the line that I am perpendicular to is 2. What's the slope of my perpendicular line? Negative 1 over 2. This is where it gets tricky. Because we're doing a lot of steps here. We're getting the y alone, looking at the slope, and then realizing we need to make it negative the reciprocal. Okay, this one I need to move my 3x over first. That would be plus 3x. Then I divide through by 3, or 4. So my slope of this line is 3/4. What would my negative, or what would my reciprocal slope be? That
Negative 4 over 3.
negative 4 over 3. So this is a concept that you need to feel confident with. And it's going to take practice. This definitely takes practice. All right, next I would move my 2x over by subtracting 2x. And I get my normal slope as positive 2, like positive 2 over 1. My reciprocal slope would go 1/2 and make it positive because it's negative. Okay. And then this 1/3 x, my normal slope is 1/3, so my reciprocal slope would be negative 3. Negative 3 over 1, which is just negative 3. Here my slope is negative 1/3, so my reciprocal slope would be a positive 3 over 1, which is just 3. So again, you flip the numbers, make it the opposite sign, okay? All right, next example, creating lines that are perpendicular to a given line. All right, if we start to create lines that are perpendicular to a given line, it's the same strategy that we've always done with parallel, or even if we're given a point and a slope. We use the same strategy. The only thing that's different is finding the slope is a little bit more tricky. So the first thing to do is identify slope. And then we make our little skeleton. That's what step 2 is. We make a little skeleton. That's our point and m equals. The third thing we do, we use the point slope form to create the equation. So I want to create a line that is perpendicular to this line and passes through the point 2, 2. So the first thing I want to do is identify what is my slope. Well, if I'm perpendicular to 1/2, then I want to be the opposite. The opposite of 1/2 would just be negative 2 over 1 or negative 2. So my slope of my perpendicular line is going to be negative 2. That's me noticing that the slope of this line is 1/2, and the reciprocal of 1/2 is negative, the reciprocal is a negative 2. So now I have, that's my first step. My second step is I take my point, 2, 2, and my slope is equal to negative 2. Now I create the equation. Third, I'm going to go y minus 2 is equal to my slope times x minus the x I'm given. Y minus 2 is equal to negative 2x plus 4, because the negative and negative turn to this plus. And now I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I get y is equal to negative 2x plus 6. That is an equation that is perpendicular to the first equation we were given. So the only new part is identifying the negative reciprocal slope. That's the only new part that you have.